Hello, and welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I am your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on Monday mornings, so be sure to subscribe. So, why am I making this podcast? I hear so many stories of people who feel misunderstood or feel broken. What's wrong with me? I hear this after maybe I give a presentation or I'm having some kind of discussion with a group or an individual, and people are still not understanding their own personalities. There has been a lot of conversation in recent years about introversion, which is absolutely awesome, but people are still confused. I hear things like, well, am I an introvert or extrovert? I like spending time by myself, but I like people, so maybe I'm in the middle. And they don't really understand what's part of their personalities and what's natural to them. I also interacted with somebody online that just really bemoaned the fact that they were an introvert and wished they were an extrovert. Because extroverts, they had the great life. And this person was missing out on so many things. But I'd really like to think that that's not the cause of missing out on anything, but it's a lack of understanding that may be the cause of missing out and not getting what you want out of life. Or there's talk about introverts in the pandemic. I heard just the other day someone said, hey, this is a great time for introverts, right? Not having to go anywhere or see people. And, I almost get a little offended at that because this is a hard time for us all. And there could be good and bad, but there's just so much misunderstanding about what it means to be an introvert. I am really happy with the increased awareness over the years and the increased conversation, but we need more. It's definitely better than when I was a kid, and this wasn't talked about at all. I've always valued my family and friends and my relationships, and these relationships were always very important to me. Looking back at my childhood, in addition to spending time with my family and friends, I did value some time alone. I needed some solitude, and then sometimes I didn't mind. As a child, I had a great imagination, and I could play for hours with a mismatched set of action figures. As I got older, I was involved in organizing parties with my friends, and I look forward to this. And sometimes these parties got kind of loud. But on the same time, I did need some time alone. I could think about riding my bike to a very far away mall and enjoying the ride there and back, but also just enjoying spending some time in the arcade by myself. And so both things were very important to me. So I was enjoying both the solitary life and also my relationships with others. I love to think and be philosophical, solve problems, and I always had lots of ideas. I definitely couldn't have described my strengths and needs as an introvert back then, but looking back, I had them. My understanding of my introversion and my strengths and needs took place over a much longer period of time. And I've discovered that when I'm living in my strengths and making sure my needs are met, I am far more successful and happier than I've ever been. So, a few years ago, I was reading a lot of books from introverted authors as I was getting ready to start the Quiet and Strong blog. I was discovering many great authors on the topic of introversion, and of course, most were fellow introverts. So one day I went into a Barnes & Noble. I was looking for a particular book on introversion. I was really disappointed they didn't have it. And as I was leaving the store, Introvert Power by Dr. Laurie Helgoe seemed to jump off the shelf, a shelf that was close to the door. Maybe it was the bright yellow cover that caught my eye. But yeah, Introvert Power. What a great title. So I dove deep into this book, and it had many great insights and was one that was instrumental in shaping my understanding of introversion. Here's one quote of many from this book. This book is about embracing the power of introversion. It's about indulging, melting into, drinking in, immersing ourselves in the joy, the genius, and the power of who we naturally are, and not just on the occasional retreat, but in the living of our lives. End quote. This book was life changing for me, and I highly recommend it. The idea that introverts are not defective extroverts, but that introverts have their own power, their own gifts, their own strengths, and of course, their own needs. Another key finding from the book that Dr. Helgoe presented was some research that shows that introverts make up about half the population. Does that surprise you? Keep in mind there are many types of introverts, and many of them are not quiet, but we share a love of ideas, maybe not the same ideas, and we have a natural preference to spend time in that inner world of thoughts and feelings. So it's funny to me sometimes when people try to stereotype half the population. All introverts are quiet all the time. Introverts don't like people. These things just aren't true. And the other thing is to keep in mind we have many different gifts that go along with our introversion. So while I think that introversion and extroversion are very important parts of our personality, we are far more complex human beings and don't all fit neatly into the dichotomy of introversion and extroversion. And no one has all the same gifts. I do think there's a purpose in this, as we need each other, and there is an interdependence among people with our different gifts. So the world needs you to be who you are. In an interview, I was asked if introverts were more creative. I was thrown off just for a second, as I hadn't really thought about creativity in this way. I don't think creativity itself is based on introversion or extroversion, although it may take a different form, or does take a different form between people. I think I am creative with strategies and thoughts, but my artistic ability probably was arrested around third grade. I'm still drawing stick figures. And so I think introverts or extroverts can be creative. It's just going to look different between people. So no matter what your gifts and strengths, you can get what you want out of life with just a little understanding. There's a lot of great books out there from authors like Laurie Helgoe that I benefit from. I also took assessments like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which introversion and extroversion are a part, but there are many other important gifts and strengths that it uncovers. I've also benefited from other assessments like Clifton's Strengths and also the DISC. And we can talk about assessments in future episodes. And these last two aren't specifically about introversion, but they're really helpful in looking at different aspects of our personalities and our strengths. And outside of books and assessment, I've done a lot of personal reflection. And of course, you'll hear me say introverts are very good at personal reflection. So, through many years of experience, study, and self reflection, I've learned that I'm an introvert and great gifts come from this. The truth is, I have different skills and strengths and different desires than my extroverted friends. Or I have a lot that's different than my introverted friends, while I may have so many things in common. And that's okay. I no longer want to be an extrovert. Throughout this journey, I have learned to get the happiness and peace I need by understanding my natural strengths and needs. Part of this journey also included understanding which introverted traits were natural for me, such as thinking before I speak and needing more time alone than my extroverted counterparts. I also learned, there were aspects of my personality that couldn't be changed, as well as things that I could change, such as having more confidence and the ability to better navigate social settings. For example, I used to struggle with networking. I wanted so much to be like an extrovert I saw around me who appeared so comfortable at networking events. As I got to know myself and strengths, I learned new skills that helped me become better at networking. However, I learned that even though I could be better at this type of situation, I still had different desires for being social than my extroverted colleagues. An extrovert may really enjoy working the room, as they say, and getting to know 50 strangers immediately, whereas I would gladly trade 50 short conversations for one or two deep conversations. Neither is good or bad, but when you learn about yourself, you get to know what you want and how to accomplish it. Introverts naturally focus on their inner world of ideas, where extroverts spend more time naturally focusing on the outer world around them. Of course, everyone thinks and everyone pays attention to what's going on around them, but the amount of time spent paying attention internally or externally varies from introvert to extrovert. In fact, the amount of time spent on inward focus even varies quite a bit from one introvert to the next. So, not all introverts are alike. For example, as an introvert, I spend a lot of time thinking, and this leads to great strategy and creativity. I'm a big picture person, where another introvert may focus more on details. I may be more of a thinker, while another may be more in touch with the feelings of others. I like things to be scheduled, and a fellow introvert may be more relaxed and more spontaneous. What strengths are uniquely yours? Do you recognize that others, whether introverts or extroverts, have different strengths than you? But one strength is not better than another. Sometimes it's hard to see strengths that are not as outwardly apparent as other gifts. But with some introspection, you can discover those things that you are great at and understand how to use those things to your advantage. As introverts, we may have different desires, values, skills, and abilities, but what we have in common, like I said, is a love of ideas and concepts. We're great thinkers, and we can use this skill to identify and hone our other gifts. I'm going to list some of these possible gifts, and some might apply to you, and some might not. So think about what gifts you have. You may relate to some of the things I talk about, and you may want to add to my list. As a deep thinker, you may be an amazing problem solver. Often with introverts, great ideas come as we let problems or situations roll around in our minds. We're able to look at complex issues and see all the details and how all the pieces fit together and come up with some brilliant solutions or next steps. As an introvert, you may be very analytical and ask, why did that happen? Or what will happen in the future? You may be able to anticipate future needs or ask, what if? You may spot patterns in information and be able to work through some complex situations. Again, 50% of the population are introverts, but we take on many different gifts. A few examples of, what they might call famous introverts. Bill Gates, a well-known introvert, used his introverted problem-solving skills to develop his multi-billion-dollar Microsoft brand. Another famous introvert, J.K. Rowling, used her incredible imagination to create the spectacular world of Harry Potter. And Warren Buffett, who's been called the world's richest introvert, again, depends on what time period you're looking at, used his analytical skills to amass his investment fortune. As an introvert, you may have a desire to feed your mind and do lots of reading and research and collecting of information. This can make you extremely valuable as an expert in a particular area. It may help you think about how to solve problems. You may be curious and always reading up on the latest trends to explore, to gather, and synthesize the latest information. What is working or what's broken? What could life be like if? You may have many ideas. For some introverts, these ideas may come nonstop. You may have flashes of insight as you reflect on various aspects of life. Again, you may be creative in lots of different ways. You may feel emotion deeply and use this gift to understand others. Likely, you're a dreamer and you have very innovative ideas. You may struggle with winging it, but often introverts are the masters of preparation. With a little work ahead of time, you can put together a brilliant presentation or speech, or prepare for that important meeting by considering all the necessary details. You may have the ability to focus or concentrate for long periods of time, which allow you to work on complex problems or projects. You may be very methodical and relish working through statistics or data, or you may have a great talent for sifting through the smallest of details. You may love to theorize and think about better ways of doing things as you gain insights on how to better your life or to better the lives of others. And you probably have a great imagination. You may be a great observer of people or have a deep understanding of the emotions and feelings of others. You may be a fantastic listener, or you may be intuitive to the needs of those around you. You may have a skill for seeing the strengths in others and helping them put those gifts to use. You're likely thoughtful, and you may be skilled at asking relevant questions or looking at exceptional situations and coming up with amazing insights. You may come up with questions that no one else has asked. As a reflective thinker, maybe you get excited and challenged as you think through the mysteries of the universe. Of course, with all these gifts, not only are these things that we are good at, but they're things that we enjoy. When I'm working in my strengths and using my abilities, and you solve a problem, it's very satisfying. It's very rewarding. And it's being true to yourself. So people may not all have enjoyment of the same type of things, but what do you enjoy? You probably enjoy a good thought-provoking book or movie. You may enjoy some time alone, or at least not mind being alone. You may want to spend time with close friends or a small group of friends. Maybe sometimes you do want to go to a loud party, and sometimes you don't. And that's okay. So you have many great strengths. Maybe I listed some that you have. Maybe there's some of mine that you relate to. Maybe there's some ways that even though we're both introverts, we may be very different. But the idea is to learn from each other where we're the same, but to also learn what unique contribution we make to the world. At the same time, of course, we have needs. And part of understanding yourself as an introvert means understanding and caring for the needs that come along with being an introvert. Just like an extrovert needs to have a certain amount of social interaction, or they may feel trapped and alone, introverts generally need some quiet time to recharge and clear our minds. You will need some time each day to do some quiet thinking, recharge, and let your mind wander. How much time we need is going to vary from person to person and even from day to day. I don't think there's one particular formula for any introvert. You got to figure out, in general, what works for you. But the key is to take that time that you need. And also remember that somebody that doesn't need this alone time that you do may not understand your need. But that doesn't make your need any less valid. It's important to understand what we need and to be able to articulate our needs to others. So take some time each day to let your mind relax and so you can do your best work. Introverts are often thought of as only wanting to be alone or not liking people, but the truth is we all need connection with others. It's going to vary how much social time we need or want, but again, that's what we need to figure out. Of course, you need some time alone, but you need to have some time to share ideas or feelings and make connections. As introverts, we want to have those deep conversations, but sometimes it's important to do a little small talk and make those connections so we can have those conversations and connections that we crave. So there's probably many more needs and strengths than we just talked about. And again, keep in mind that some are related to your introversion and some may not be. The key is to first understand that you have gifts, and the second is to recognize what you need to do to use those gifts successfully. Understanding introversion can help with your communication skills, productivity, relationships, and overall happiness. Understanding introversion can help you overcome challenges such as shyness. So, what strengths do you have? What strengths are uniquely yours? Have you found the satisfaction of mostly working in your strengths? Have you found the satisfaction of honoring your introversion, making sure your needs are met? It can take some time, it can be a journey. So, I'm really glad that you're on this journey with me. And thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out to me at quietandstrong.com or email at david@quietandstrong.com. Send me topics or questions, and we can address those on the show. So many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Let's keep the conversation going. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs, and be strong.